Hello, Eight of Cups family. Welcome to Eight of Cups Tarot and welcome to the weekly edit. I'm not going to be on camera this time because actually as I was shuffling and pulling the cards, there were so many messages coming to me. Now today is the day that Neptune is actually stationing, so a reminder to all of you that you are a little bit more open today, and actually, like as of a week ago, and we've got about a week to go, where the veil is sort of thin. I hate to say that because it's cheesy and you hear a lot of people say that, like, oh, the veil is thin, but you are open to receiving a lot of inspiration and a lot of information kind of from our higher sources. Because Neptune is stationing, we are in a very fluid phase. And when we're in a fluid phase, we become a little bit more open. Our hearts are opened. Sag season means that our minds are open. Hopefully, if you're not kind of in that lower form of Sag energy, which most likely anybody listening to these kind of readings is not. There's so much that can happen in this next period. And I remember telling you guys that there's going to be a couple weeks in December, which is going to feel a little like a reprieve. Now, I didn't realize when I said that quite how emotional it would all be. So I think for a lot of us, we are very emotionally raw right now, and that's what it's going to feel like with that Neptune stationing. There's a lot of other energy that's kind of putting us in this rawness. And at the same time, there's so much hope. There's a dream. There's a vision that's coming to life. And now is a really important time to kind of nurture that vision. Sag season, I always attribute to, and I don't know if any of you have read or listened to any of the readings on The Untethered Soul. It's one of my favorite books, and I actually chose to use the cards from him today. Untethered Souls, and I know I went into this last week with the Sag season and how I kind of always associated to like wild horses on the beach. There's so much power in their freedom. And this Neptune, this vision that we're getting is like, who would we be if nothing else mattered? What would our life be like? Like if we didn't have to consider the material stuff. And oftentimes we don't realize how much the material stuff pulls us down. Like that's part of that Saturnian energy, this 3D reality. There's something so grounded about knowing like, okay, well, realistically, I need to pay my bills. Realistically, I have to be able to work and feed my family. And, there's a sense of responsibility. And a lot of times we grow up and we kind of disengage from that imagination that we were so able to tune into as a child. Listen, you know how they say like children can see spirits, animals can, there's something about the innocence. We condition ourselves to like not believe that this and that works or this and that can't be real because we don't have time for that. And, society told us otherwise. That's Sag energy. Along with this Neptune station, I mean, I can't say it enough. There's so much growth potential here. If we can embrace our imaginations, if we could allow ourselves to dream, if we could start to feel what it would feel like if our life was aligned with our vision. We're going to start to feel where the material stuff really holds us back. It's going to feel like an irritation. And when we're in this sensitive, raw spot, we might not have a whole lot of patience, guys. Honestly, like I've noticed it this week as well. There's responsibilities, there's questions, people needing me, children needing me, and I feel so lost in my mind a little bit, so pulled in. And definitely Because Neptune is in Pisces, we've got Jupiter making this approach to Pisces, right? We've got a lot of water energy in the sky, and yet there is also this fire of Sagittarius season. And this is where inspiration comes from, such a magical place in our lives. This enters in this growth, but we need to be fluid. And we are so likely to become changed or affected, at least emotionally, by our surroundings and our environment. Again, it's really important to kind of watch what you are consuming. If you're watching a lot of news, if you're reading a lot of articles, if you're hearing any spiritual leaders or talks and everybody's kind of doom and gloom, this is the end, you're gonna really channel that energy more. And I think there's a part of that, right? We've got Venus approaching Pluto. She's entering the underworld, right? We've got Mars and that final decan of Scorpio, which is the Cancer decan. Like, we're going to feel everything deeply. So you get to remember, Sag season, you have a choice what you want to feel. And it's probably going to go both ways, like a little bit of a roller coaster. We're going to find ourselves so sensitive. We're going to probably be hearing very real stories. Like I said, we kind of had to enter this idea that we have to become comfortable with other people's suffering. We're going to have to witness the suffering in some ways. And we're going to have to learn to sit in that and to allow ourselves to feel it, because if we avoid it, if we go completely into that Sag energy and just kind of run away into the new vision, then really most likely we're carrying this brick wall behind us. Until we start to accept and feel the uglier side of life, even the uglier side of ourselves, we're just going to keep carrying that into the new vision. And I kept getting this vision of like a newborn baby, you know, this thing that we want and we hope for, this dream that we all have. It's so internal, it's so small, it needs so much nurturing right now. And we have to be able to commit to that thing. You know, like when you are a new parent and somehow, some way, regardless of how exhausted you are, you seem to be able to function on very little sleep. You seem to be able to function even through pain and discomfort. And I think that's where we are now with this vision and this dream. It's like we are the willingness to sacrifice in order to feel this and nurture this in some way. And I want to really hone in on this whole Venus-Pluto thing, because I am feeling this very deeply. Look, in mundane astrology, kind of how this is playing out in the collective. This is all about the witnessing. See, I always kind of look at this relationship between Venus and Pluto as like the ultimate lovers. And I know we want to say like Venus's relationship with Mars, like they are the lovers. And yes, it does entail that. I don't know. Sometimes I look at like you have 3 types of love in your life, or you've ever heard that saying of like you have 3 different loves of your life. And the first one is kind of like that natural love, which I attribute to Mars and Venus, like that first love, that wildness, that attraction, but it can easily burn out. And then we have Jupiter, and Jupiter is that person you fall in love with and you expand with and you grow, right? Like you have the family together and you build the home and you learn so much about yourself in the process. And then there's a relationship between Venus and Pluto. And Pluto forces Venus to move to the next level. And that is through a process of surrender. And when Venus and Pluto go together, there are such a power dynamic between these two. Suddenly, there's repressed needs that come to the surface, right? We feel things on a deeper level. We can become almost very obsessive, okay? There's a very deep sexual undertone, but it's not the feminine masculine. It's kind of the above and below kind of attraction. Pluto rules the underworld, and there is nothing more powerful than the Pluto energy. And because Pluto is finishing up in the final degrees of Capricorn, the very earth sign, but it also rules kind of the idea of reaching the highest mountain and going to the deepest depth of the sea. It's about that spiritual growth, mastering the material world and attracting a much more metaphysical, spiritual existence. Pluto demands so much from Venus because Venus can't play games here. There's a nakedness, there's a realness, there's a vulnerability, and you have to face a lot of fears. And the world is going to be asking you, how naked are you willing to get in order to obtain this higher vision of your life? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're really attached to the material world, if you're really attached to a certain idea or motive at this time, if you are selling yourself short in some way, if you are attaching to something that isn't at your level, if you're not, Saturn and Aquarius, if you are not willing to transform and change and be a part of the new systems that we're building, which is kind of the baby, the infant that we're nurturing, it's gonna fall apart. If we're putting all of our hope and faith in material stuff, look, we're looking at the stock market. Stock market is getting bare. We're watching it dip. It's moving into this place where it's scaring a lot of people. This month is going to start to move very fast. Things are going to develop very quickly. And if you are somebody that holds all of their faith in the material world, you're probably in for a lot of disappointments, and you're going to have to face a lot of fears at a deeper level. But those of us that are going through the spiritual work, if we start to invest in a deeper vision, if we start to realize and have faith that the universe is working for us, and we stop resisting everything, if we stop answering to the fear, then we could really attain a level of intimacy, I think, within ourselves, like where we could see ourselves honestly, where we can come to terms with a lot of that trauma. And I almost feel like this is a shedding of a lot of karmic stories for all of us. We can allow ourselves to transform. Venus is taking a 3-month dive into this underworld. This is not a quick process. And at times, I will tell you, it's going to feel unbearable. If it is not in our own lives, it is in the lives of people around us. We're going to have to see the darker shadow side. We're going to have to see what happens when we see greed and lust and all of these negative things that have been built within our structures. And this is a release point. We have the Sagittarius solar eclipse, but first we kind of very symbolically have to go through a very deep path down the Scorpio balsamic moon, and that's where we're at today, the beginning of the week. We're in the ultimate shedding phase. If you're clinging on to anything in any way, it will feel painful. But if you allow these structures to fall, if you start to give in, and remember, there's no coincidence here. There's such a beautiful relationship between Neptune and Mars. There's something very beautiful going on between this Pisces energy and the Scorpio, because Scorpio brings it all to the surface and then Pisces surrenders it. You're open to so much inspiration. You're going to hear stories. You're going to see things. You're going to listen to videos like this, and you're going to gain another perspective. Okay, I see. As I speak, they show me the high priestess and the hangman. There's a new perspective. There's new ideas coming in. There's new inspiration. There's new hope being born, like this newborn baby within us. And we have to protect that, and we have to remain in a faithful place. It's Sag season. The solar eclipse is going to really demand that you invest faith in something much more solid than the material realm. You're not going to really be able to trust like the contracts and the solidity. If you're trying to solidify a relationship in any way, believe me, now is a time of surrender. It's a time of allowance. And it's also a time to let yourself change. This is all very mutable energy, right? The Pisces energy, the Sag energy. It's all very mutable. We can allow ourselves to be changed and inspired by this energy. We don't want to allow ourselves to be manipulated. Like, that's the downward side of Scorpio and Pluto. If you're listening to a lot of stuff and you're feeling fearful, it's going to be like a quick spiral, guys. You're going to go down that end really rapidly. It's going to pull you in, and like claws, it's going to hold on to you. And you're going to make this 3-month process through this eclipse and through this trip through Venus and Pluto. And you're really going to allow yourself to get dragged down. You're going to have to face those fears. You're going to have to face kind of the darker side of reality. But if you're willing to accept and forgive that the universe has this, but it also has this other side to offer, this inspiration, this hope, this rebirth that we're in, then we're going to be in a much better position in the next 3 months. We're going to learn a lot about ourselves, and we're going to see a lot more hope and potential. This is a process. It's going to be a long winter. By the time Venus is really done and out of Capricorn, moved away from Pluto far enough, we're starting to move into Aries season, and it's going to be go time. We've got Jupiter getting ready to move into Pisces. There's a lot of endings here. Remember, we're in a balsamic phase of the moon, the dark moon before the new moon. We're in the very last degrees of Mars and Scorpio this week. We're ending up the story this month of Jupiter through Aquarius. There's a lot of endings, and that's what I mean about the karmic shedding by the spiritual growth that we can do now. There's so much potential in this 1 week if we could do the work. All right, guys, I know that was long-winded. It's just, it's a very deep feeling this week. And I hope that you all can feel the hope and the inspiration. I know we will all feel the fear as well. I know we're all going to get really uncomfortable in a lot of ways. But there's a higher perspective. We're being asked to look at something differently. We're going to be asked to really demand a lot more. And the only way that that can happen is through our belief in the universe and the way it works. All right, guys, so as usual this week, I've selected 3 piles. I chose 3 stones. There is something very beautiful about the masculine and the feminine energy this week, so I tried to mix the stones. I tried to mix the cards between the masculine and feminine as well. The first pile is a green amazonite stone. We've got a black obsidian and then a rose quartz. So kind of take a look at the thumbnail, just pick whatever feels right to you. Listen to all 3. For some of you, maybe like Monday and Tuesday pile number 1 works. And so just allow it to be very fluid messages for you. If it doesn't feel like it resonates with you, please don't make it fit. It just isn't your message. All right, guys, I love you so much. We'll go over pile number 1. Take care. Hello, pile number 1. You guys chose a beautiful green amazonite stone. I often equate green to kind of the heart chakra. So there feels very much like there's an opening right now. We've got here the world, the guardian of wands, and the wheel of fortune in your first 3 cards. I have to tell you to have 2 major arcanas come up right here. The process that you have been going through, which is most likely a series of events within your life that has felt like you are growing and moving on. Now, the World card to me, a card of Saturn, a card of mastery. It's the last card in the deck, and I think that there's been phases of your life that you've been there, done that, achieved that goal, did that thing. And right now, the environment, Wheel of Fortune, is changing. Life is changing. And you seem to be in this place, Guardian of Wands, which is the Knight of Wands, of just following your heart and following your desire. Now, I get the feeling that there's not a big plan. Like, I'm not sure that you really... In some ways, I've kind of tried to teach myself this technique, and maybe you as well, or maybe you just found yourself naturally conforming to this inspiration in your life where you don't really have a plan, right? I think for a lot of us, we try to plan our schedule, plan our days, set these goals. Here's what we want to accomplish. And for most part, like most of your life, or up until now or recently, that's probably how you were operating as well, goal-oriented. And then you reach a point of culmination, and the universe hands you an opportunity. Maybe it's just time, maybe it's, and however you got here, be it losing a job, closing out a cycle, closing out relations in your life, but you seem to be kind of in the in-between. And you know that change is coming, but what you want to invite into your life now probably looks very different than the structures and the things that you brought into your life in the past. See, I think in the past, there was a lot of stability, probably a lot of attention on the material growth, the gains, the preparation, the growing the foundations, right? A lot of focus maybe in the material world, and then we begin to change and shift. And this is kind of what I've been saying about the collective as a whole through this entire process of 2020 and 2021. Our values are changing. The things that we love are changing. Okay, the emphasis, the priorities in our lives, they are all changing. We're in a place of review. Center of the reading, the Judgment card. We're assessing, what do we love? What do we want to invest our time in? What deserves us? See, when we reach a level of mastery, we know that our life, that we in and of ourselves have a lot of value. We start to realize, like when your business becomes successful and you could start raising your prices because you become aware of your worth. It's not a greed thing. I don't feel greed here. But you become aware of your worth. And we have the Guardian of Wands, which tells me that you have operated from a place of courage, believing in yourself. There's a level of confidence that got you to where you are. But your environment is changing. Your priorities are changing. Maybe it's just no longer about like the material rewards. Maybe it's not just about the stability, the knowing that there's a check coming, twice a month, and that you can pay those bills, and maybe all of a sudden your priority doesn't shift to that anymore. It's no longer about like, my bottom line is that I have to make this much amount of money. Maybe you're shifting into a place of, how can I serve? What is my greater purpose? You can't go through the transits that we're going through. You can't go through this amount of change, like Saturn, our responsibilities, kind of going through this square of Uranus, which is kind of this divine intervention, without questioning, like, what is your purpose? Is your purpose just to make money? Is your purpose just to know that you'll be able to pay the bills and keep food on the table? Yeah, of course, the very root of who we are, our ego wants to make sure that we can provide and thrive in our environments. But the World card and the Guardian of Wands step out of your comfort zone, North Node. The Guardian talks about our relationship with desire. And I know through Scorpio season, and as we're going through this Venus-Pluto thing, we're going to have to come to terms with our desire, where it comes from. Is it healthy? Is it good, right? Pluto can be very toxic if you allow things to manipulate you, if you're living inauthentically, if you're giving away your power. Pluto will feel very toxic because it's going to make you look at yourself. It's going to make you question, why do you do the things that you do? Why do you make the decisions that you make? You have to come to terms with how we manipulate energy, because that's the whole point of what we do on this earth. That's the whole point of our existence, is learning how to responsibly manipulate the energy. When you realize that you can create whatever you want, you no longer need to manipulate other people, because you know that they're here to add to our lives, to not take. They're not here to provide. Like, there's so much power when you understand what Pluto wants you to know, which is that your soul is eternal and indestructible. Now, on the human plane, we're malleable. People change us. People affect us. There's trauma, there's pain, there's success, there's desire, there's all these things that drive us. And as they drive us, they change us. We're raised by a certain standards and morals. Society tells us we have to perform or be a certain way. Society says that these things are important, and we, up until this point, have lived this way. But there's new inspiration. There's something else being reborn from deep down below, where society doesn't have the power over you anymore. Money, wealth, greed, those things no longer manipulate and control your mind and your decisions, nor does fear. We're all in this place, right? Like, we've kind of all been forced to watch the news, to watch the bad stuff. It's all right in our faces. And we know we can't control it. We know that we can't change what's happening around us. We know that we have control over how we react and how we invest. Underneath the Wheel of Fortune and the Guardian of Wands, we have unbound, releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. See, this feels like a graduation, and this is what I feel a lot about this energy. Like, we're all going through this graduation process. I think I said that in the last reading. If you've been through that process, even like going back to high school, and we kind of all graduated high school and kind of had to face this fear of like, all right, now it's time to grow up. And to me, maybe some of you we're moving into the second stage of our lives now, or the third stage, really. Like, we did the graduation, we accomplished, we accumulated, and now we're in this third phase of life. What do I do? What do I do once I mastered like the adulting, the 3D world? You have a freedom now because you're unbound to, you are becoming unbound by these roots here, this 3 of Pentacles and the 10 of Swords. Very much feels like you are being unrooted, uprooted from a lot of things in your life. And that might just be the flow. Look, if you've got partnerships, jobs, relationships of any kind, if there are things that just feel like they are distancing themselves, it's really important that you don't cling, that you allow. And it's also important that you answer to these desires now, that you pay attention to this inspiration. Because you are in a state of releasing these old karmic patterns and stories means that you are open to what is being rebirthed. And of course, the universe never allows a void, right? Never allows a void. So when we clear out those old stories of responsibility, of time, of investment, of commitment, when we could really release those old stories, we take a deep dive into ourselves. Like, this is not little stuff. This is a deep dive. This is getting really honest with yourself. 10 of Swords. These things come to an end. Now, you are literally bookended by endings in this reading. The World and the 10 of Swords. Kind of, this is kind of like my more Capricorn Saturn card, right? Like the Capricorn Saturn is that I have to drive, I have to achieve, I have to master this. And the 10 of Swords is it's an air sign, so it's more of the Aquarian Saturn energy, which means I'm going to remove myself from this situation. I'm going to emotionally detach from this thing, this old way of life, these old thought patterns, because I'm going to allow something new to come in. And we have a 3 of Pentacles, and then we have this card here, card number 31, breaking down to a 4. This is a process. This is a process from disconnecting from the community, from the society, from the old stories, judgment. See, and I think you're going to witness this. I think you might be watching a lot of other people, because I'm not seeing that you're without your stability, right? Like you are okay. I don't think there's a lot of feeling like a lack here. I don't get that, like having to sacrifice everything so you can build something new. You're just at a new phase. You're deeply rooted in self, okay? You have whatever you need, and you will always have everything that you need. But you're going to witness a lot of other people struggling with the fear, because they're deeply rooted in other people's stuff, okay? They're deeply rooted in commitments, in the idea that you are responsible for other people's thriving, other people's happiness, other people's material world. They are bound. You're going to watch a lot of people, you're going to witness a lot of people feeling bound to these things. Venus meeting Pluto. Pluto says, get naked, get vulnerable, get comfortable in the not having, and understanding that you are still a sovereign being. And a lot of people are going to have a hard time with that. They're going to have a hard time imagining what society and what life would be like if we weren't so deeply rooted by the idea of commitment and responsibility. And I think they're going to serve as an example of what you no longer want to be. because you want to enter this new phase, this wheel of fortune. You want this story to turn. You want to evolve into a higher consciousness. And the only way you could do that is by truly knowing that you yourself are deeply rooted, earth element stability. Even if your material world falls apart, even if you're not always 100% achieving and contributing in the Saturnian ways, you know that you're okay. And we have, what if consciousness were to remove its focus from your personal set of thoughts, your personal set of emotions, and your limited sensory input? Would you become untethered from the bonds of the personal self and be set free to explore beyond? Man, I just get this feeling of like, but what if? And I just feel like a lot of you are being so led by that whole idea, but what if? What if this were possible? What if life could be this way? What if we all could thrive in a place where we are able to have healthy desires and wants and needs and love and relationships and not be so heavy? Not have such a relationship to what did you contribute to society? Were you useful in some way? Now, I do want to read to you this card number 31, the dry desert, because it does feel like you're in a transition of inspiration. Is your life presenting you with opportunities that seem to yield nothing? Have your ideas dried up? Does it feel like you're on an endless journey through a dry, hot, lifeless desert? This card reminds you that there are times when you're meant to become resilient as you journey through harsher circumstances. You're being required to conserve your energy until, after consistent effort, you reach the oasis you're searching for. Consider the creatures that live in these conditions. They have adapted to thrive in spite of the outer environment. In a desert, water essential for life can be found deep underground. Go deep within yourself now and find the truth there. Let spirit sustain you while you locate the real source. Whatever it is you're asking about will not be found in the conditions you're in until you move past the surface of things and choose to do the real work and discover the answers deep within you. This may not seem like the most productive time, but looks are deceiving. This is the most important place to find what's truly right for you. Wow. Really beautiful reading, pile number 1. Very inspirational. I just feel a real lightening with this eclipse coming up, and it is definitely an opportunity to lighten yourself. All right, I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you next week. Okay, pile number 2. You guys chose the black obsidian stone. I myself have been really kind of surrounding myself with the stone. Now, what happens is I kind of envision this as a tent around me, like a safety spot. And because I'm very empathic and because Neptune is stationing, so it's just a very empathic time intuitively for me, means that I can feel a lot of other people's energy. And sometimes, like when I'm surrounded by really beautiful, uplifting people, this is an amazing gift. But when I am surrounded by toxic environments and doomsdayers and, all of that negativity, I could feel pretty drained. And I can feel like I need protection. And what happens when we go into a place where we need protection, we begin to give in to the fear. Now, there's nothing wrong with protecting your energy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with cutting off toxic things and toxic people in your life. And you know, whenever we are inspired to do that, most likely that comes from a place of deeply knowing that we are creators. And the people that we imagine in our lives probably reflect the situations we want in our lives some way or another. And we start to realize where negative thoughts from fear, from old stories, from past wounds, they begin to take way too big of a narrative in our minds. And I think we're going to have to see that about ourselves. I think you're being asked to kind of protect whatever it is you're building. See, we have this Ace of Pentacles here. This card I was drawn to the most. This is the seed you're planting. And this is something that is very real in your life. There's something appearing in front of you, a job opportunity, a commitment, the love of your life, a new inspiration of some kind. This is that baby that we're nurturing. And this Ace of Pentacles is surrounded by the Five of Swords and the Five of Cups. I don't know, like when you deeply love something, automatically we kind of shift into this fear place where we're like, oh my God, but what if it leaves? Like we feel like we need to cling to it. We need to protect it. We need to defend it. And I do get a feeling that you are coming off as very defensive right now. Now, whether you're projecting that onto things or this is more of kind of like this internal process, what you want to be careful of is your relationship to the belief that it is already yours. Now, I know this is kind of weird and I'm jumping around all over here, but I felt this Ace of Pentacles at such a deep level in this reading. Like this is that thing that means everything. This is that thing that changes your whole life. And you're going to have to face the fact that there's some stuff that you may be inviting into your mind, inviting into your environment that is not conducive for this growth. Now we have the Hierophant, which often represents our guru, right? Now, whether the guru is an outside source, like somebody that you like, maybe you listen to like Tony Robbins or something every day, and like this emotional intelligence, listening to ourselves at a deeper level. And it's the knowing of self, right? Like really knowing what's right for you. And here we have underneath this card, Gemini, I think. There's no doubt here we've got a Seven of Swords and a Five of Swords. There's overthinking. We can overthink and we can overanalyze this Ace of Pentacles a million times. We can come up and create brand new stories about how this is going to grow or how this isn't going to grow. We could think about it all day long, but it is not the kind of investment that you want to make right now. This particular card, Gemini, is the card of the Lovers in the tarot. It represents a choice. And because it comes out with a Hierophant, we're being asked to make a choice from a much more mature and authentic place within us. And here we have the Seven of Swords and the Six of Wands. This is where kind of our ego can get the best of us. Now see the Hierophant, this girl, she's kind of sitting high up in a tree, which means she is very protected from the elements. And there's the wisdom being taught to her. You're probably in a pretty potent energy now of being taught certain lessons. Now, they don't necessarily have to be harsh. This little girl does not look like she's suffering in any way. So if you could at the very least attach yourself to the idea that regardless of the outcome, you are learning a valuable lesson that's going to get you to the next level. You could start to drop the ego. You don't have to be so defensive. The interesting thing that I got from the Gemini card, I think there's the idea of the two lovers, the twins, the other half of self, which I talked about, the feminine meeting the masculine and everything coming into balance, right? And here they're reaching for each other. There is a separateness. And I think that you may be looking at a situation, a job, a dream, a love, whatever it is, and you have the choice, Two of Pentacles, between seeing the separateness of it, meaning it is not quite in your grasp yet. There's still, on the 3D mundane material world, this is not quite yours. But yet these two lovers look up into the moon, into the sky, into the atmosphere, the galaxy, and because they are filled with faith and knowing and belief, therefore the thing or person that they want is already theirs. We're taught that a million times. Manifesting 101, you have to believe you already have it, to act as if it is already yours, to nurture it as if it already exists. You might struggle with that a little bit this month. There might be outside sources, outside circumstances that could make you feel a little bit overstimulated, overanalyzing. And Pluto, oh my God, it makes you obsess on things, and Neptune is going to distort those things. There could be like, again, like Mercury and Sag, like we're not going into details. We may not even be hearing things right. Like people can say something to us and it could trigger us, and all of a sudden we jump to these conclusions, right? We're like, oh my God, well, this person, obviously they just don't even like me. And we could really spiral into like these negative thought processes. 7 of Swords is always negative thought processes to me. And right here we have, what do you need to release? The waning moon. Okay, we couldn't be in more of a releasing phase than we are right now. We're coming out of the Taurus lunar eclipse, which is all about the release of like deep-rooted material thoughts, right? 3D reality. The things that block you from reaching that next level, right? To moving up a level in consciousness. We need to release those thoughts that keep us stuck there. The 6 of Wands tells me that these things are really, really rooted in your ego. Now, I know that we say ego and we're all, like there's different schools of thoughts. Like you have to listen to your ego because it keeps you safe. There's a big difference between your ego and your intuition. Your intuition will always keep you safe. Your ego is what's going to say, I don't know the difference. I can't separate the ego from the intuition. And what happens is when we overthink, when we give more power to our thoughts than we do our internal kind of hierophant, we could really go down through some paths of feeling like we need to defend ourselves. We need to keep ourselves safe. See, we have here, underneath this 2 of Pentacles, trust your path. If you knew you would be supported, what would you do? Again, right back to, if you want something in your life, you have to pretend as if you already have it. There's so much of an emphasis over here on like the fear, and I think this is the old story. See, this 7 of Wands is not just because you're a negative person. It's not just because you don't believe in yourself. That 7 of Wands is deeply rooted in your past. We've got Mars moving through the Cancer decan, meaning you are activated by memories from the past, and maybe not even this lifetime. Like if you're somebody that can really wrap their head around the idea that we're living through lifetimes of karma and pain, we don't remember the stories, but we still internalize this pain and this loss that we felt. And the Five of Swords and the Five of Cups is telling me that you're going to be a little triggered this month. And it's going to kind of activate those old habits and thought processes, because you're going to need to see what you need to release. Okay? If you're in situations that are very nurturing, but maybe there's outside circumstances that are making you kind of doubt this, or if you are questioning this path in some way, it's because you're being activated by the way it didn't work out in the past. The old examples or other people's examples, like, oh my God, I can't just put this thing out there because that's what this person did and it was a complete embarrassment and disaster. That's really not going to get you to achieve anything in your life. Being asked to be authentic, and other people are definitely going to be authentic. We're going to have to see a lot of different sides of people. Maybe there's something that you really believed in, and then all of the sudden, like information, also represented by Gemini, some new information comes to the surface, and all of a sudden you become in super defense panic mode, like, oh my God, this is not exactly what I thought this was going to be. Who cares? Who cares what the outcome is? How could something so trivial, because that's what I feel like with the Seven of Swords and the Five of Swords and the Five of Cups, like these are trivial, okay? We're not talking major arcana cards here. These aren't like end-all deal-breaker moments. Most likely, these things are coming up to get you as a soul to evolve, to start to trust yourself. There's no room here. You cannot invite self-doubt to this party. Every time you do, it's going to take over the table. You are vulnerable and raw here. And what you don't want to do is allow, Gemini is the opposite of Sag. And we are going to we're going through a full moon in Gemini in December as well. So how you handle this now will really set the tone for how you kind of deal with that full moon in Gemini, which is going to be the final release of these patterns. You're in a process. But Two of Pentacles, you start to see there's a choice. You have a choice. And how you attract the things that you want by what you focus on. We have this card number 12, slow and steady. 12 breaking down to a 3, Gemini ruling the third house, our thoughts. There is no doubt you're going to be triggered, okay? I think you've done a lot of work, like trust your path means you've been on this path, you chose this path, you somehow along the line, your soul said, okay, we're going to evolve from this old karmic pattern. Maybe that happens because you hear like a friend advise you, like maybe check out Abraham Hicks, and it starts to open you up on this path, right? Like, oh, maybe I do give a lot of power to my thoughts. Maybe it is important that I start to pay attention to my thought processes. You've already started this path. Now is a time to really step up. Hierophant, it's a time to become committed to this path. And oftentimes when you start to commit to something, the universe will test that commitment. That's not an insult. It's just so that you know that if you are committed to this path of improving this habit, then it's guaranteed to happen. The Five of Swords and the Five of Cups means that you need to protect this new path from the emotional self-doubt and the overthinking and overanalyzing, as well the thoughts and opinions of others. Because the Five of Swords is always a noisy external energy for me. And the Five of Cups is very internal, and I think it's kind of coming from both directions. There could be conversations that trigger you, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the depths of these old realities, these old stories, old feelings of guilt, old feelings of shame, and you get to choose what's more important, this Ace of Pentacles that you're nurturing, this thing that you believe in, or remembering the way it went the last time. Giving in and becoming weak to other people's opinions of it. Pluto is going to demand that you step into your power. You've got 3 months of being really tested here. What I want you to know is the universe has more patience than you could ever imagine. You may go through some real ups and downs, like this thing that you want. One day it feels like it's working out and it's the path of least resistance. And the next day it's like, oh my God, I don't know what I was thinking. This is nothing that I wanted. I'm frightened, I'm I'm triggered. And it's going to be up and down. But the important thing is each time that you are triggered, each time that something sets you off, you are going to be able to recover. Like that's what I see with this Two of Pentacles. You're learning to balance these two realities. And how quickly you can come out of it, how quickly you could recognize it and say, well, that's not rooted in reality. That's coming from a place of fear. That's coming from a place of defensiveness. You're going to start to understand the difference between the ego and the internal higher source information. Are you going to stumble? Yes, absolutely. Are you going to have days where you fall into this? Absolutely. I have the feeling that for some of you, December is going to feel gut-wrenching and beautiful at the same time. Highs and lows, ups and downs, fear and joy. And it's so unique because the universe is actually creating an atmosphere for you to understand what you manifest when you are in one state versus what you manifest when you are in the other. Play with it, okay? Gemini energy, very playful. You're going to find the more you play with it, Taurus energy, stuff grows when you're in the joy, when you're in the playfulness, when you're not taking everything so seriously. You'll manifest things so much faster if you stay in the positive energy and you begin to realize how quickly you can pull yourself out of that negative thought process. Like, it is a choice. I do not have to go down this deep tunnel today. I could just simply believe that even if it's not working out right now, it will, because it already has. A wise person remains centered enough to let go every time the energy shifts into a defensive mode. The moment the energy moves, relax and release. Letting go means falling behind the energy instead of going into it. You're learning to save yourself. Each and every time you get triggered this month is a lesson in you saving yourself. And because you choose yourself every time, and because every time it happens, it gets a little bit faster and a little bit faster, you begin to let go of the resistance. This Ace of Pentacles becomes something very real. Something you could hold in your hand, something that will pay your bills, something that will net in a commitment or love or growth in some way. Slow and steady. You cannot expect whatever this Ace of Pentacles is to grow overnight. You have to respect the process, the importance of the roots of this being healthy. the roots being nourished, which means we're nourishing our mind internally before we have something on the outside world to show for it. All right, guys, just pay attention to your thoughts this month. Pay attention to the journey and how much more you gain when you are coming from a place of joy and love and belief. All right, so important. I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you next week. Okay, pile number 3. You guys picked the rose quartz, which is just, to me, always such a beautiful energy of openness and receptivity, which is absolutely the theme of this reading. Now, let's just talk about the center card here. We've got the 4 of Pentacles, which is a card of grasping, clinging, holding on to dear life. And we have that repeated twice in your reading, 4 of Pentacles. And then we have the Grand Cross, the Provoker. And to me, this is kind of really embodying the whole idea of Saturn square Uranus, like the old us versus the person we're becoming. And because we're becoming a different person, the universe is demanding a lot from us. And the idea that, like, you know, in some customs or some religion, it is mandatory somewhat that you give like a certain amount of your income to charity. There is the idea that when you are in a state of grief, like you continue to grieve, do not put pressure on yourself to let go or release. Like, it is okay to stay here and feel. And I think that there's a similar idea here, like you're in a state of protection mode. You're doing that Saturnian thing. Yes, of course I want to change. I want to grow. I want to evolve in this way. Like, I am open to this revolution in my life. And then it happens, or it starts to occur. It starts to become a reality. And you're like, whoa. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I could truly give everything. Like, the universe is demanding more and more and more from you. It's going to keep demanding. Let's go. You said you wanted this. And in order for you to gain this, you have to give up this old self. You have to give up this old story, right? This is a theme for everybody. Venus and Pluto is demanding you to get naked, to get raw, to get vulnerable in what you truly want and desire. Now is not the time to hold back. 4 of Pentacles, that part of you that wants to, I want to quit this job. I want to like really invest in this dream. I want to move to California or New York and become like a Broadway star. But I could never actually leave my 9 to 5. Well, we have the Grand Cross, the Provoker. We have the Storm Fields, which means the universe is demanding that you let go. Now let's look over here. We have the 3 of Cups, 7 of Cups in the reverse, and the 4 of Pentacles. There's something kind of irritating, provoking about the 7 of Cups in reverse. There's a shattered illusion that happens when we have the 7 of Cups. 3 of Cups is like this very romantic energy, like everything is beautiful and wonderful, everything's working out, and then it's like 7 of Cups in reverse, like, oh my God, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. See, we have to see the reality of something. We have to start to see what this thing really demands of us. We have your hard work is paying off, new moon in Capricorn with the 3 of Cups. And to me, this symbolizes progress. And 3 of Cups is really about the joy in life, the celebration. And I think you're in a place of celebrating where you are. Like, this feels good. If this is a new relationship, if this is a reconciled relationship, everything feels really wonderful. Like, we're building things, like we're coming together. The pieces are starting to come together for us. The investments that you made with your heart, with your emotions, you're starting to actually see material gains in some way. And then the Seven of Cups comes along and it says, okay, you said you wanted this thing and I gave it to you, but now you have to really look at what this thing is. Seven of Cups in reverse. You could feel a little drained from this situation because it brings clarity, and then it brings this feeling of being a little overwhelmed. And I think that the Seven of Cups is kind of attached to an offer of some sort. And again, we've got this card, yes, just say yes. There's so much haze over the Seven of Cups in reverse because there's clarity in what you need to do. It's also kind of attached to fear, because if you're going to do this thing, if you're going to make this commitment, if you're going to say yes, it also means you're going to need to let go of the outcome. See, this feels risky. This Three of Cups, this Seven of Cups in reverse, it feels risky. Kind of like this feeling of, I'm gonna really try this thing. I'm gonna really step into this other alternative kind of lifestyle, or this alternative approach to something. And it's going to trigger you, right? Like, we've got the provoker and we've got storm fields. Whatever this thing is that you're saying yes is going to demand that you really shake yourself loose. That's what this is all about. You said you wanted this thing, and then you got this thing, and it made demands on you, like you've got to step out of your comfort zone, as the provoker will do. All right, well, put your money where your mouth is. Are you going to do this? You're really, really close to achieving whatever it is that you want. It's very clear to me that you are very close to reaching your desires. And the blockage actually lays in your ability to receive what it is. Like, the universe is kind of bringing this to your doorstep. It's like, this is real. This stuff is happening. But it's going to demand a risk. It's going to demand that you move, that you make choices, that you start to act as if it is yours. There's a lot to do in the second reading. The Chariot means that this thing is the path of least resistance, right? And we have this Ten of Wands and the Four of Cups in reverse. And the Four of Cups in reverse is where you know, if it were right side up, Four of Cups, it would represent like complacency, or not being satisfied with where things are, always wanting more from this situation. You're coming out of that energy. This is actually like something that's being born. You're getting what you wanted. I just keep hearing that over and over again. You're getting what you wanted. Are you willing to step in and allow it to happen? Energy doesn't get old. It doesn't get tired, and it doesn't need food. What it needs is openness and receptivity. You picked a stone that represents openness and receptivity. Gonna have to drop some defenses here. we're going to have to kind of reassess these foundations, which Venus and Pluto is going to do. It's going to provoke you to take a risk. This risk is really and truly divinely inspired for you. Say yes. You cannot stay in a place of wanting something so badly and yet not believe in it, to not take the risk. Now, I don't see a Fool card here. I don't get this feeling that this is really a risk. Like, in anybody else's eyes, nobody would really doubt this thing. They would just do it because they're open to it. Because some people are healed enough, like when life offers you love, you grab it with both hands and you develop this gratitude for it, which is what will happen. Four of Cups in reverse. You will learn to receive, and then you will get to reap the rewards, which is that of the gratefulness of it. We can't be attached to outcomes. We can't put conditions on things like, okay, well, I'm going to fall in love with this person, but it's going to demand a certain kind of like change. I'm going to have to get vulnerable. I'm going to have to reach a different kind of level of intimacy. And you say that you want that, but then the universe puts it right in front of you and you're like, no, I can't do it. And what a shame it would be to deny your soul of something that it just eternally has longed for. These three people here symbolizing the ability to open their hands and open their heart and receive what they wanted. Here, the center of the reading, we have a fence creating a barrier with actual locks. Like, what do you have locked away inside? What are you hiding? What are you refusing to be exposed? This is all about the universe provoking you to unlock that gate and receive. And we have the card of the Chariot, and for some reason, the message that I'm getting is that the truth of the matter is you have a lot to offer. I think the bottom line, you have a lot to offer this world. Okay? Because you are somebody that can appreciate and be grateful for this thing, because you've had this yearning for ever and ever. And the universe knows that once you receive it, when you allow yourself to receive it, the feeling of gratitude in your soul is what literally lights up the earth. They feed each other. The gratitude brings the light. The fear, the negative side of things, brings the darkness. We need balance. We have to have both. One cannot be without the other. And you have spent too long existing in the darker, negative, safer place, right? What we perceive to be safe. This is a risk. In the material world, there might be people that are like, oh my God, that's crazy. How could you do that? Why would you do that? That's going to ruin everything. But it won't, because you are learning to receive. Something, I mean, it's just very strange, and it's almost very Uranian in a way, like unconventional, and yet the whole idea of becoming unconventional leads you to a place of greater stability and experiencing what you have always wanted to experience. You just, for some reason, whether it was worthiness, whether it was even just believing it was possible, that was your block. This week might feel uncomfortable, but it might also be feeling like you are really being led down a path. See, I see you having immense support. And I see you really committed. Like new moon in Capricorn, you're committed to this new thing, this new vision. This is what you've been building. Capricorn energy, they don't reach like 3/4 of the way up the mountain. Then they're like, oh, you know what? This is just a little too much. I'm going to go home. No, never. Never Capricorn cardinal energy. You will never see that result. There is no failure here. There is no actual possibility of this thing failing. You're safe. You're safe to take this risk. You're safe to be unconventional. You're safe to let go. Because now is a time for you to say yes. It's a time for you to take the risk, to go on the adventure, to spend the money. You're closer than you realize to achieving that thing that you want, and the universe is just getting you to kind of pry your hands off the wheel. You cannot be in a state of control. You cannot try to conserve this. You cannot try to conserve yourself or your emotions. Don't try to suppress anything this week. Even if this is all an internal process, even this is just you understanding where you are emotionally and what drives you. Even if there were illusions or pain from the past that comes up, your perception of it will be provoked in such a way that instead of being in victim mode, you actually appreciate those situations. You are actually grateful for the losses and the hurt and the pain because they all contributed to this place of where you are now. It all got you to where you are. You're knocking on the door. You are literally at the doorstep of that place you've wanted to arrive to. And at the very last moment, I think there's a level of questioning your worthiness. Are you capable of this? Are you ready for this? And the answer is yes. If you're finding yourself confused, it's a temporary state. If you're finding yourself provoked emotionally, it's because the universe is kind of injecting that water element into the situation to help it grow. Maybe this is even like a big fight with a partner, right? Like this big emotional blowout. And I'm never saying that you should ever like disrespect but you have to be honest. Like you have to talk about your feelings. You have to have these conversations. Just because you fight with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you're doomed and it's never going to work out. Probably there was messages and things you needed to hear. And in the heat of the moment, you say some things that actually potentially add a lot of growth to the situation. All of a sudden you start to realize how you really feel, or how this person makes you feel, or how this thing makes you feel. All of a sudden, you didn't really like where you are, and now you are eternally grateful for it. There's a clearing of the air. There's a softening of the ground here. But you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And that means believing that you deserve it, and believing that you're open to it and you're worthy of it, and that it is possible. All right, good luck, pile number 3. I will talk to you next week. Have a great week. Love you so much.